Welcome to the Writing Gals, four sweet romance authors talking about writing as we stay up late. Today, we are lucky enough to have a special guest, Lindsee Armstrong, with us. And we will introduce her a little bit later. But first, we want to start out by just kind of giving you an update on what we're working on right now. So, Victorine, you want to tell us what you're doing?
Sure. I'm still working on my reader magnet. I know I'm really slow, but I'm almost done with it, and that'll be up on my website soon, and you can get it free when you sign up for my newsletter. So it's a story about a girl who's in love with her sister's fiance. So it's a cute little short story, but that'll be up on my website probably by next week. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's really good too, everyone. So you'll want to get it. What about you, Michelle? What have you been doing?
I am still finishing the rough draft of my book, The Lovely Deep, the first song in the Mer Song trilogy, my little foray into the fantasy world. And I'm outlining my next contemporary. And another fun thing for those of you who might watch or want to check out the Regency House Party, we are having a grand ball. So you can come and join our Facebook group or find our website, regencyhouseparty.com. And we're about to start posting all the fun chapters where all the couples finally get together. So if you're just starting, it's a great time to come in and catch up and be there for the grand ball and the final moments where all the romance happens. So we're excited.
Yeah,
that's all I got going. Yeah.
I've been seeing your dresses on the page and the hair, so that's really fun.
Yeah. And so that since we're talking about newsletters tonight, we sent a newsletter out to our group with an invitation to our ball, which is kind of fun. So, but you can still get an invitation on our Facebook page. It's just super, super fun.
Cool. Awesome. What about you, Amy? What have you been doing?
Well, I've had sick kids for the last 2 weeks. And when you have 5, you go, when they all get sick, you go, why do I have so many kids? Because it just keeps happening over and over and over again. So I haven't had time to do any writing, but Marrying a Billionaire got to 203 in the store, which is my best to date, which is awesome. And so but now that's kind of on the decline, which they all do. And then I still have rule number 1 finished, and I have about 5,000 words into Marrying a Prince, which is the next one of my Mary book, and some ideas for rule number 2 for my YA series. So I'm just kind of waiting for everybody to get healthy. I was actually going to start writing tonight, and then I saw Lindsay's post, and I was like, oh, that's right, it's Thursday. I have a podcast, so I guess I'm not writing. So tomorrow I will start again. And thank you, Lindsay, for reminding me of our podcast.
That's awesome. So Lindsay, what have you been working on?
I have been working on my next match book, Matched by Design, and it's super slow going because summer is like the absolute worst for my productivity. When my kids are home all day, I don't get anything accomplished, and by the time it gets to 9 o'clock at night, my brain is shut off. So let's hope that I make sense tonight.
I feel the same way most of the time. Kids are fun, summer's fun, and we look forward to school starting again.
Yep.
And for me, I finished up Bridgewater High number 3. It Was Always You, and I sent it to my editor on Saturday. Yay! And then I got really impatient and I set up a pre-order. So let's hope that it does okay. Trying new things. So yeah.
I love how Judy is like confession time.
Well, in case anyone's seen it, I'm not following the slow launch thing quite perfectly this time. So I still like to experiment. I see other authors doing things. I'm like, oh, I might as well give it a try and see if it works for me. So I'll let you know if it fails or if it does awesome. I don't know. And then I started my book number 4 in that series. I was supposed to write another book, but I decided I didn't want to. So I'm doing Ridgewater High again because I like it too much. And I got the first chapter finished today, and hopefully it's okay. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. So anyway, we're going to be talking about newsletters tonight, and we have Lindsay here who is really good at newsletters. I remember like last year when I was starting to look into the indie publishing world, I saw a bunch of people talking about Lindsay's newsletter and how awesome it was and how fast it grew. I'm like, okay, she would be awesome to have on here tonight. So let me just introduce her for you. She is a USA Today best-selling and award-winning author, best known for her No Match for Love series. She met her true love while at college while she was studying history education. They are now happily married and raising twin boys in the Rocky Mountains. Like a true romantic, Lindsay loves chick flicks, ice cream, and chocolate. She believes in side-worthy kisses and happily ever afters, and loves expressing that through her writing. So with that, let's just get started on the questions. And the first question that we have is, why should an author bother with setting up a newsletter?
I feel like a newsletter is really the only marketing avenue that we have like 100% control of, because Facebook ads, they can, constantly change the algorithms or make you pay more or all those kinds of things. Same with like Amazon ads, they change all the time. BookBub ads, they change constantly. The featured deals on BookBubs, you can never guarantee you're going to get them. So really, I feel like having your readers' email addresses is the only way that you can like 100% guarantee that you're going to be able to have direct contact with them when you want to. I think it's great to have like BookBub followers and Amazon followers and things like that. And I focus on building those as well. But at any point in time, any of them could say, oh, we just aren't going to send new release alerts anymore, or we aren't going to notify people when you have a sale, or, whatever. And then you've lost all that time and energy you've put into building that up. Whereas with emails, you always have those emails. You can take them with you wherever you go.
Yeah, I think that's very good. And that made me wonder, because, you'd said that maybe they stopped sending out those things. I'm like, I wonder if my newsletter service, if it ever decided to stop, maybe I should like back up those email addresses. Do you guys ever do that? You do?
Yep. I have a reminder in my phone, and every single month I back up all my lists.
That's a good idea. I need to do that because I've never done that before, and that would be sad if I lost it all. So speaking of services, which ones have you used? Which ones do you like or recommend?
So I started out with MailChimp, which is probably one of the most well-known ones, and it's great. I think they still give you free subscribers up to 2,000, or you don't have to pay up to 2,000 subscribers, which is great. But once I started actively building my list, it got really expensive really, really fast. And so I switched over to MailerLite, which is very affordable. And I know when, I think it was Susan K. Quinn switched over, and it was like she told everybody how awesome it was, and they all switched. And I think we kind of killed MailerLite's system because it started having major issues. And so sometimes if you go search in groups of like past posts or whatever about MailerLite, you'll see people complaining about how it's buggy or things like that. I feel like they've pretty much ironed out all the issues that they have, and I hardly ever have issues with them anymore. And the few that I do have is well worth the money that I save from using them versus MailChimp to me. But those are probably the two most popular ones. I know a lot of people also use Mad Mimi or Aweber. I see those ones talked about as well. I don't think it really matters who you go with. Just make sure that whatever system you choose is one that you've researched and you've talked to people who've used it and made sure that they're happy with it. And also, you just want to make sure that whatever you pick is what you want to stick with, because like I said, I started with MailChimp and I had a whole bunch of automatic sequences set up, and all my ebooks and everything were linked to that one. And when I changed, it took me like 2 weeks of constant work to update everything and get it reset up on MailerLite, which was a huge pain. So I would recommend research, pick one, and then stick with it.
That is a good point to make. Is it very hard, like if you don't have all of the automated stuff set up, is it very hard to switch just your subscribers over?
No, it's super, super easy. Any newsletter service should have an option for you to download the files, or the emails as a CSV file, I think it's called. And then you can just import it into your new one. If you don't have anything else set up, it should only take like a couple of minutes.
Okay, cool, awesome. So we have another question. Once you set up your newsletter, what is the best way to get subscribers?
So there's a couple different ways to get subscribers. I think the most popular way right now is probably the reader magnet, right? Which is where you basically have a book that you give away for free when people join your newsletter list. So you put links to that everywhere. You put them in the front and back of all your like your ebooks or whatever, in the front matter and back matter, and then people click on it and sign up for your newsletter list going that way. So that's probably a popular way. Of course, you should always have links on your website for people to sign up. Sometimes I'll find an author that I really like their books and I'll go to their website and I have to like hunt to find where to sign up for their newsletter to get information. So you want to make sure that you have it really prominently displayed so they can sign up easily. And then there's a whole bunch of different companies that you can pay to get leads from. And so usually they have some sort of a group giveaway that is usually targeted around reader magnets. So they'll set up like a landing page. They'll have all the book covers or whatever of all the different people who have paid to be part of that. And then at the end, they send out a list of emails and you get to import those into your email thing and hope they stick around.
Okay. So like with those paid promotions or whatever, have you found them to be good? Like, do you find that those subscribers do read the books and then go on to stay with you and continue to open your newsletters? Or like, I don't know if I'm making sense. Do you find those ones to be pretty good too, just like the ones that maybe sign up from reading your book?
Yeah, I do. I know a lot of people think that subscribers from like InstaFreebie or, different places like that aren't as high of quality subscribers as the organic subscribers. And I think it's both true and untrue because I found some of my very best subscribers that way through different giveaways and things like that. So yes, they might not be the best, but for me, it's like a numbers game, right? At one point, I had an email list of like 22,000 people. And I had built it very quickly by doing a whole bunch of different promos, which at one point I was totally overbooking myself. I'd have like 4 or 5 I had to put in one newsletter because I'd overlapped so much or whatever. And then over time, after I saw what kind of quality subscribers they were, I culled that list by like half and got it down to like a little under 11,000. But those 11,000 subscribers that I have now are really good subscribers, and it would have taken me an eternity to get those organically, I feel like. So I think that there's pros and cons to both ways of doing it, just strictly organic and also doing the lists and stuff. I think the key is that once you get them, you have to quickly introduce them to who you are and make sure that you turn them into fans and that you interest them so that they want to stick around. If you give them quality content and you're providing things that they want to hear about from you, then they're going to stick around. It doesn't matter where they come from.
So how did you determine who stuck around and who did you said you culled? How did you decide?
I was just going to ask that. How did you cull it?
So it's kind of a complicated process. I mean, not complicated, but a little time consuming, I guess. So I had probably had my list at that size for probably pretty close to a year. It had been over 6 months at least. So it had been a long time, and I email my list at least weekly. Sometimes I email them twice a week. So I kind of have the philosophy that they're either going to buy my books and love me or they're going to unsubscribe because I annoy them. So I email really, really frequently. So they had received over, 6 months to a year, a lot of campaigns from me. So I knew by that point that they should, have opened something probably. So I went through and I segmented by people who hadn't opened any campaigns in the last 6 months and people who had, trying to remember what the parameters I did with people who had only opened like one, and I think they hadn't opened any campaigns in the last 90 days and they had only opened less than 20% in the 6 months before that or whatever. And I segmented that list and then I sent out an email basically saying, hey, I haven't heard from you a while. I think that my numbers might be faulty and that it's saying you're not reading my emails, but maybe you really are. When you send those kinds of emails, you want to make sure that you make it seem like almost like you're like a dumb blonde who is like, oh man, I'm just doing something wrong. And you want to make it seem like it's your fault and not the subscriber's fault. So I basically just emailed them and said, hey, I don't know if this is right. If you still want to hear from me, click this button and let me know, or respond to this or whatever. If you don't, that's totally fine. No hard feelings. My books aren't for everyone. You can unsubscribe, or I will unsubscribe you by this date. And I gave like a specific date. And then I sent, I think it was like a month out. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, to the ones I still hadn't heard from, I emailed again and said pretty much the exact same thing. And then 2 weeks after that, the ones I hadn't emailed from, I sent them an email that said, hey, I didn't hear from you. I don't want to be clogging up your inbox. I'm going to unsubscribe you. If this is a mistake, contact me here and I can get you back on my list. And then I backed up my list just to make sure I had that data. And then I unsubscribed all the ones I hadn't heard from.
Okay, that is a good way
So-
to do that.
How many actually contacted you back, would you say? And how many stayed on and followed you through to that end process?
It was not a huge amount, but it was a lot more than I had thought it would be. I want to say it was like maybe 300 or 400 people that contacted me. And I think I had, trying to remember, it was almost a year ago that I did this. So it's been a while. I think I might have had a Google form that I had them like put their email address in. They could fill out the form or they could email me. I gave them like 2 or 3 options of how they could let me know they wanted to stay, because I wanted to make it as easy as possible for them. And then after that data, I went back and I unsubscribed all the rest. But I made sure to email them before I unsubscribed and told them, if it's a mistake, here's how you can get back in contact with me.
So I had a question, jumping back into the reader magnet thing that I wanted to ask about. I've heard that you can use the first 10% of your book to attract subscribers. Have you got any advice for doing that? Because I don't think there are as many promos out there for like percent of books instead of the whole reader magnet, right?
I think if it's the only option you have, you should go with it and you should do it. You cannot put your book as a reader magnet if it's in KU. It will definitely violate the terms of your contract and you don't want to get in trouble with Amazon. So if you don't have something ready yet, or you don't have the time to write something, or you don't have a book that you can use because they're all in KU or whatever, you can do the 10%, but it is going to get you a lot less of a return, I think, because the majority of the promos out there, they do want a full story and they don't allow previews. And then I've heard from other authors that sometimes they get angry readers who think they're getting a full book and aren't aware that it's a preview, and they email them back and are angry, and they end up not buying the book because they feel like it was like a bait and switch tactic kind of, and that they were tricked somehow. So I'd be careful if you do a preview to make sure that you very clearly mark it as a preview so that readers know what they're getting.
But there's no real way for readers to find it outside of promos and your own promotions, right?
You can put it on your website. So on my website, I very clearly advertise the very first thing they see is what they can get for free. I actually just barely changed it. I had a novella for about 2 years, I think, that I had used as my freebie thing. And I decided I wanted to put it back in KU and see what I could do with it. And specifically, I had a box set that it was in that I wanted to put the box set in KU. So I collected a whole bunch of bonus content that I've given my newsletter subscribers over the last couple of years, which ended up being about 15,000 words worth of stuff, which is about the same length as my novella was that I was giving away. And now I'm giving that away for free instead. So you can do different things. If you don't have a novella, you can be creative. What I'm giving away now, it's a deleted chapter. It's one of the first unedited chapters of like a different version I had of my most popular book in my most popular series. And then I wrote like a special wedding scene of one of the couples that everybody loves. So you can give away stuff like that if you don't have a novella or whatever, but you can advertise it a whole bunch of places. I mean, I have it as the very first thing they see in my ebooks that they can join my newsletter and get free stuff. I have it as like the second thing they see when they finish my book after they get the link to buy the next book. They see that they can join my newsletter and get free stuff that way. I have it very clearly advertised on my website that they can get it there. I have a pop-up on my website, which I'm like hugely opposed to pop-ups, but they convert. That's why everybody has them, is because they work. So you can do that to get subscribers as well. if you're not into the promo thing and you want to, you know, have more organic subscribers.
I like that idea a lot because I give, like, I say, you know, join my newsletter and get, you know, deleted scenes or extras or whatever, but I never thought to put them in like an ebook form to just give them all at once. Because yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that. I think I'm going to steal that for now because I don't have a reader magnet.
And it's super fast and easy. I mean, almost everybody formats ebooks themselves, you know, so it took me like 10 minutes to format it and put it up, and now I have things to give people for free. The only thing I will do is, I will say as a caution, is I had put an image in all my ebooks with like the cover of my reader magnet saying, join my newsletter list and get this for free. So I've been slowly going back and updating all my ebooks because that's not what they get for free anymore. So now I'm putting something much more generic that says like sign up and get free stuff, so that if I want to change it again down the line, because I have a lot of novellas in my series, so I can switch it up a lot if I want to, then I don't have to go back and update everything again. And I would also say, this is my number one tip, is to use smart URLs. It's a website. It's smarturl.it, I think is the link for it. And you can create a smart URL to sign up for your newsletter. And it's like a permanent link that you can change on the back end. So you put that in your ebooks. And then if you ever switch like from MailChimp to MailerLite or whatever, you can go update that link of where they can sign up for your newsletter, as opposed to having to go and update all your books. Because I have like 21 titles now or something. So it's taking me forever to go update with, you know, the cover not in it and stuff anymore. So don't be stupid like me. Be smart from the beginning. Save yourself work.
That's my biggest thing. And Lindsay, if you ever get Amazon's ear, tell them to create something so we can update our back matter on all our books just on one page on KDP, right?
They should totally do that.
That's what I want.
Seriously, a pain.
Yeah. So we kind of maybe went over this next question, but I'm not sure who Ryan Z is. So our paid newsletter building promotions like Ryan Z worth it?
So Ryan Z is a company that he runs a lot of list building services. So you basically, it's like I was talking about before, you pay a fee. I've done them that are as cheap as, I think, $10. I've done them that are as expensive as $200 for list building services. You pay the fee, and they basically have a big pool of subscribers that they can advertise to. A lot of times it's through a giveaway, so they will run Facebook ads and things like that, advertising that somebody will win. A lot of times it's like a Kindle, and every single author in the giveaway gives a free book to the winner or whatever, or they'll do like $200 in Amazon gift card money or whatever. But you're basically paying for access to all their subscriber base, and then people who are interested sign up, and it's very clear if it's a reputable company that you're using that they're signing up and joining your newsletter by signing up. And then at the end of the promotion, you get a list. Or sometimes there's ones like My Book Cave or Book Funnel or Insta Freebie that they directly integrate to like your newsletter service, so that subscribers just go there as they join. But then at the end, you get a big list. So as far as whether or not they're worth it, I think that a lot of them definitely are. I would ask around and see what is working for your specific genre, because I think some work better for certain genres than others. With romance, and especially with a lot of us being sweet romance authors, you have to be careful, because a lot of times they do just romance, and all this steamy, like bare-chested man covers are thrown in with our sweet romance covers. And a lot of times the same readers don't like both those books. A lot of times they like it, you know, their romance really steamy, or they like it really clean. So you want to be careful with that. I think they have diminishing returns. Like the first Ryan Z I did was really great. And then I did another one a few months later, and it was good, but I had a lot of repeat subscribers that I already had on my list. And then the third one, I got even less new subscribers than the previous ones. So a lot of them, they're just like us. They have limited subscriber base. And if you do a lot of the same, if you do a lot of promos through the same company, you're going to get a lot of repeat subscribers.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to have to look into that when I have the good magnet.
And I would say too, I did a promo through MailChimp, I think it was. No, not MailChimp. Through My Book Cave, one of those two. And some of them, they integrate like that. And some of them, you actually have to download the them on that site as a CSV and then import them in. So I had done like a promo with a group of people and I didn't know that. And I had like 400 or 500 newsletter subscribers sitting there waiting for me, like a couple months after I ran the promo. So make sure that you know what the promotion is doing for you so that you don't miss out on those subscribers that are just sitting there waiting for you to grab them.
And a lot of the like really big companies that have a ton of authors will give you a specific day that you're supposed to upload it. And if they do that, you want to make sure you follow it and do it on the day they say, because they're basically trying to prevent readers from suddenly getting 30 emails from 30 different authors all in one day saying, hey, welcome to my list. Here's a free book. They are hoping that by spacing them out, they'll avoid mass unsubscribes for everybody. So you want to pay attention and you want to do what they say. And then you also want to make sure that you're tracking everything. So like for every promotion I sign up for, I keep track of how much I spend and how many subscribers I get and what the cost per subscriber is, so that I know if it was effective or not and if I want to use them again. And usually the cheaper ones are the best ones. Like the one I paid $200 for was awful and totally not worth it. The ones I've paid like $20 for are some of the absolute best ones I've had.
Can I ask a question? So when because you're talking about automation, like my one thing is as soon as they sign up, because it's linked to BookFunnel, they get my free book. So what type of things do you do to like introduce people to your newsletter? Because I know some people who are like, on this day, I talk to them about this, and then a couple of days later, I send them something new, and a couple of days later, I send them a new thing, and I don't ever do that. So I'm just wondering, am I missing out? Should I do something like that? I mean, what's your automation introduction sequence? What does that look like?
So I've had a lot of different newsletters under different pen names, and I have tried a lot of different things with them, and I'm always changing it. About every 6 months, I go in and I completely revamp my automation system and change things to fit what is working for my readers now and what the current trends kind of are. At one point, I had an automated sequence that was like, I think it was 20 emails long, and they got 20 emails over, one a week. So it took like almost half a year for them to work through the entire sequence. And basically, whatever your automatic sequence is, your purpose is to tell them where they can find you, where you want them to follow you, and you want to introduce them to you and your books and make them love you and buy everything that you have. That's really the only purpose. But like my current automatic sequence, I just have them, like I have them follow me on BookBub on one email. I have them follow me on Amazon on another one. I tell them that they can like me on Facebook because that's where I spend most of my time. On another one, I tell them about each of my different series and where they can get the books. I think that's pretty much it. I used to invite them to join my review team. I don't invite new members anymore because I have a big enough review team that I don't need anymore. But I used to have that as one of my automatic emails. The thing you want to make sure is that whatever you're doing, you don't want to invite them to buy your book every single email. So like kind of a good rule of thumb is every third email, you want to invite them to buy something. So it used to be that somebody would enter my sequence and they would only get emails from the automatic sequence until they finished it, and then they would get moved over to my list where I email weekly. So I would have an email, saying, hey, here's my book. You should read this book and buy it. Here you can find out about it. And I might include an excerpt or whatever. And then I would have to come up with 2 emails of basically filler content where I was not selling them something before I had the next email about the next book. And so in the filler emails, that's where you can invite them to like follow you on Amazon or follow you on BookBub. Or I also had fun stuff like my narrator did as a Christmas gift one year for my readers. She narrated like an unedited first chapter of the book where it had basically been like swapped and the main characters had been the opposite of each other, if that makes sense. So I had that as one of the things. I tell them about, here's my writing space, all that kind of stuff. Now I just put them into my newsletter automatically and they get my weekly emails as soon as they sign up because I found I was publishing too rapidly for 6 months of drip campaigns to really work. So now my drip campaign is a lot shorter because I don't need the filler emails because they're getting the filler emails from me every week, basically, if that makes sense.
Do you find that by having them sign up to follow you on all these other platforms that it diminishes the effectiveness of your newsletter? As far as like that they buy it when they get, email notifications from BookBub or something? Does that make sense?
No, I don't think it does. I think it helps because there's that, first of all, there's that whole thing that somebody has to see something like 7 times before they buy it or whatever, right? It's that like marketing law, supposedly. And so if they see my email about my new book and then they get a notification a few days later from BookBub, and then Amazon emails them like a week later or whatever, that's 3 times they've seen my book. Hopefully they're going to buy it, one of them, right? So I think it helps that way. And then the best newsletter service in the world, sometimes your email doesn't, show up like you think it will. Sometimes it ends up in their spam folder when it usually doesn't. I mean, weird things happen. So I want to make sure that I have other places that I can rely on as well. I mostly push them just to the places that are going to tell them about my book. I don't post on my Facebook page a ton. I hate Twitter. I don't understand it. I am too dumb for Twitter. So I don't use Twitter very much. So I pretty much just want them to be on my newsletter list and follow me on BookBub and Amazon. So that's what I focus on pushing.
And I was following Mark Dawson, and he was talking about how, I have I'm hearing an echo. I think it might, there we go, it was Michelle. Michelle's computer doesn't like me. And he said what he does is he'll send, because I think he has like 26,000 subscribers. It's a massive amount of subscribers, probably more than that. But he's like, when he releases a book, he sends everybody in his newsletter an email saying the book is out. And then a couple days later, he separates them to all the ones that didn't open it, and he sends a thank you email to them by saying like, thank you, you guys helped me reach this number. And so like a lot of people are like, why is he thanking me? I didn't open his last email. And so then that makes them open the email. And then what he does after that is he takes all of those, the ones that didn't open after that, and he like moves them over to MailerLite and sends them all an email from MailerLite, because he's like, sometimes people's like email will just shoot my stuff right into spam, where they won't do it from a different email with like a different format or something like that. And I was like, wow, if I had that big of a subscriber list, I would probably be that particular about it. But like, that's pretty crazy that he like is that methodical with it.
Mm-hmm. And one thing you can do is in your very first email, I put like at the bottom of the email is a PS that if they're on like Gmail especially has that promotions folder or whatever. So I tell them, hey, can you just mark me as okay or move it to whatever so that you get my emails. So you can tell your subscribers, which will help cut down a little bit on that. But with new releases, it's definitely worthwhile to resend to people who didn't open the first one and see if you can catch them on the second round.
Yeah, I like that idea because that just helps. That's smart. I always wait like till the next week just to kind of do the thank you, like thanks everyone for helping me do this. But I'd never thought to even like resend it to the ones who didn't open. Like, guys, you're gonna get this sometime.
And again, my whole philosophy is buy my book or unsubscribe, because it costs me a lot of money to have your email. So if they get annoyed of me saying buy my book and unsubscribe, that's fine with me. Like, I'll take either option. You can, give me my 35-cent royalty, or you can get off my list so that I am not paying 35 cents for you.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so we have another question. What should I avoid doing when trying to build my list?
When trying to build your list, you definitely, anyone that's selling you subscribers, you don't want to buy that. There's a difference between signing up for a promotion that's going to look for leads, that they'll give you the leads at the end, and flat out like buying an email list. If somebody's selling you email addresses, that's like not cool. That's like excuse me. I think I would be cautious and make sure that you're doing any list building whatever with people in a similar genre as you. Like, don't go and team up with a mystery writer if you are writing women's fiction, or if you write, clean romance, don't promote with an erotica author or whatever. You want to make sure that whoever you are teaming up with has readers that might like the same thing as what you're writing. So I think that's probably another one. As far as building your list, I think that's probably just the main things to avoid.
Okay. It reminds me of something that happened like yesterday. Because I'm setting up newsletter swaps for my next release, and someone wanted me to share her her book, her reader magnet, and so I'd basically be promoting her newsletter to my readers. Where is that something you would ever do or not?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I have done before. Usually it's with authors that I have like a personal relationship with. Okay. As far as like we've met, we've talked in person, not just some random person that I don't know. So I know, because I know the person, that their books are, high quality and that they are something my readers really might enjoy. And a lot of times on those kinds of swaps, people will only do it if you have a similar list size. Because if you have like 500 subscribers and they have like 25,000, obviously that's not really a fair swap. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's totally fine to say, hey, why don't you email your subscribers about your book and I'll email mine about yours, and we'll see what kind of crossover we get between them. I have a few authors that probably, every 6 months to a year we'll do that with each other, and we always get, usually a few hundred subscribers from it. So it's worth the 5 minutes it takes me to do the email.
Okay. That is good to know. So that brings us right into the next question. So what do you like to send out in your newsletters? Because, you're sending one out every week. What kinds of things do you put in there?
So I try to always include something about writing, because that's why they're there, and I want to remind them that's why they're there, but I don't sell my books in every email. So I give them updates on my current projects, like, what I'm doing, or I'll tell them, like, if I just had an audiobook go under contract, or if, a new release is at the line editor, little things like that. I pretty much almost every email now have 99-cent deals of other books that I think they might like. I make sure with those that I always let them know if I've actually read the book or not, because you want them to trust you in your opinion. And if you accidentally share a book that you didn't read that everybody hates, you don't want them to come yell at you for it. So I make sure to tell them that. I share a lot of personal stuff in my newsletter, as far as like, I'll tell them about my kids. I'll tell them about, they just had their first soccer game, or we just went on a vacation to Disneyland, or, those kinds of things I share with them as well. For a while, I would share recipes with them, but I also poll my newsletter subscribers every 6 months to a year or so and ask them what they want more of and what they want less of. And nobody wanted recipes, and I don't really like cooking that much, honestly. So there you go. No more recipes. I don't send those anymore. But they wanted more book recommendations, so I started doing more of that. And that's pretty much it. You want to keep your newsletters short. There's nothing that I hate more than when I open up an author newsletter and it's like this giant page of text with no pictures or anything. I don't have time for that, and it's like an automatic delete almost every single time if I see that. So I try to put lots of pictures. I try to break it up with headings so they can quickly scan and see like, oh, this is an update. I want to know about that. Oh, the book deals, I don't care about that this week. Or yeah, I really need a new book. Let me, go look at those. And I keep them really short and put in lots of images.
Okay, awesome. So what are...
Oh, Judy?
Oh, go
ahead. Can I say something real quick? And I think, especially in the clean and wholesome area, I mean, the biggest problem I always see, and that's in any Facebook group when women are talking, they always say, do you have any book recommendations? Because I don't know what's good out there to read. I don't know what's clean. Because I think clean and wholesome is such a brand new category that people don't even know they can search for that on Amazon. So when I send a newsletter, I do what like Lindsay does. I just do a short blurb about this is what's going on. They love pictures of my baby girl. I always put it at the bottom, and I get so many responses back where they're like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. Mine's 12, my youngest is 12, and I'm sad. And you know what I mean? They love to hear that kind of stuff about you. And then and I think with like my newsletter, because I talk about this with people, and I'm like, I get people who unsubscribe pretty much every time I send one out, and I send one out 2 times a week. I send one out on Sundays and on Wednesdays. But I was like, I need a newsletter that is okay with me sending out newsletters that often, because I'm constantly swapping newsletters with people, and I don't want to have one newsletter that has 10 books on it. I want to give, like, my max is 3, and I don't even like to hit that max, because I want to give everybody's book opportunity to be seen, because I think once you click on one book, you're probably not going to go back to my email to click on another one. So I want to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of my customers. But I think a lot of times we feel like, well, they're just going to think I'm trying to sell them on books. But I mean, they're readers for a reason. And like what she said, they're voracious. They're going to read. They want to know more. And if they're with you because you're clean, they want to know what other clean things are out there, because there's not going to be as many in a densely populated with spicy romance genre. So it's easier for them. So maybe that's just what I like to tell myself, because it makes me feel better for sending it out so often. But I'm like, this way they can. I actually had somebody who was like, I might have to this is a friend of mine. She's like, I might have to unsubscribe from your newsletter, Amy. I'm like, oh, why is it too many? And she's like, no, because she's like, I don't get anything done because you're always sending an email out. And I'm like, oh, here's another book. Oh, that looks good. I'm going to buy that one. And she's like, I'm like on my couch reading all the time. She's like, you just have too many good recommendations out there. So I'm like, well, but don't subscribe. You can still stay. Just don't go all the way down to the bottom where the newsletter, the new releases are. So I mean, people appreciate that sort of thing. And and I think they know enough now to join newsletters. They know kind of sort of what they're getting and and what to expect. So that's why I was like, how do you start them coming in? Because I just give them the free book, and then they're just pushed right into because they're getting emails twice a week from me. Sometimes not so many if I don't have any to change from, but they're constantly getting stuff from me that I think if I had an automation sequence too, they'd be getting like 3 emails a week. And that seems a little excessive, I think, for me. So
I think it's important when you do an automation sequence to make sure that it mimics what you do with your regular list. So if you email twice a week, send automated emails twice a week. If you keep them really short and mostly selling books, then keep it short and tell them about your favorite books, that, something that's evergreen, because you don't want to change it and update it frequently, but you want to make sure that you're mimicking what you do in your actual list, so that when they get off the drip campaign, they don't have like some sort of, system shock. It's suddenly getting all these emails or whatever, and they don't unsubscribe. And I also, I have a list that's for new releases only, so that when people go to unsubscribe, it says, hey, are you getting too many emails from me? Sign up for this list, and I just email you when I have a new book. So that helps too.
That is a good idea. I need to do that too.
Is that something you can set up through MailChimp? Where it
I don't know about MailChimp, but on MailerLite, you can customize the unsubscribe form, and you can hyperlink things in the unsubscribe form. So I hyperlink it to the group that's for new releases only before they unsubscribe. And then when they unsubscribe, I have that link as well and say, hey, if you still want to know when I have a new book, you can go sign up here.
That's fantastic.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to look into that. How many do you save from, do they tell you how many you save from unsubscribing? Because you would know then if they're unsubscribing and they're subscribing to the next one, that they're moved over from that new release one.
I actually have not looked on the specific stats of that. That's a good question. It's not a huge amount. I think I have like 100 people on that list, so it's not a ton. I've had way more than 100 people unsubscribe. I can promise you that much. Every time I send an email, I get unsubscribes. If you're getting unsubscribes, that's not a bad thing. That's just what happens. I have a lot of authors that tell me, oh, well, every time I send an email, somebody unsubscribes. And so I don't want to send emails anymore because I'm worried people will leave my list. It's fine. If they're going to leave your list, they're going to leave your list. Still send the emails, because like you said, Amy, you need to set up an email group that is happy with whatever is working for you and for your marketing. If you need to email twice a week and people don't want to hear from you twice a week, that's okay. Your list isn't for them. They can leave and they'll find somebody else that, only emails once a month, and that's more comfortable for them or whatever.
Cool. So with that, we have a question. What are newsletter swaps?
So newsletter swaps are generally where you have a new release and you say, hey, I have a new release. It's, I want people to send it out in their newsletters. In return, I will feature one of your books in my newsletter at a certain time. So like I would say, hey, Judy, I have a new book. Will you send it to your list? And you'd say, yeah, sure. I can send it on this date. I'm going to have a new one a month after that. Can you send it to your list then? And I would say, sure. And that's basically a swap. When you're setting up swaps for a new release, you want to make sure that you're not putting 10 in one email because that will overwhelm readers. 3 is my personal max of what I will put in a single email. And I also try to group like books together. So like if you have a free book, nothing is going to get sold in that email. They will only download the free book. So I try and put like only free books in or only 99-cent books in or whatever. For my list, just the way it's been set up, they really don't like full price books unless they're my own. So it's always a really hard sell if it's full price, but I'll still put them in for people.
Do you list the price on your email, or do you just say, go to Amazon here to buy it?
I've tried both ways. I'm kind of experimenting. I haven't yet reached a conclusion of which one is better. If it's free, I pretty much always say it's free. If it's a sale, a lot of times I'll say it's 99 cents, but a lot of times I just say find out more or grab it now or something like that. And then they can go find out for themselves.
Yeah, because I always think I hate having to go and check and make sure on Amazon. So I'd much rather just not even say it, because then if I'm wrong, then I don't want people emailing and be like, you told me it was this price. Because I've had people who said, you said it was this price and it wasn't that price. And I'm like, well, sorry, there's not much I can do about that. So.
And if I do list the price, I try to always make sure that I say, make sure you double check the price before downloading because I'm not sure how long it'll be on sale.
I also, on mine, since so many of my readers are in Kindle Unlimited, I always do point out if the book is in KU because, I mean, clearly that's what my readers have in their buying preferences. So.
And everybody should go right now. And if you don't have a short tagline, go put a short tagline, because in my newsletter, I only put a 2 to 3 sentence description of the book. And I hate it when all they have is a long blurb and I have to go and try and come up with a 2 or 3 sentence description for myself. So it's always really helpful for newsletter swaps. I think if you give them like a short tagline that they can put if they prefer to just put taglines.
Do you think though that like that would maybe if you had like, because I want to give them all as much information as possible now so they know exactly what they're getting so that the click-through is more pure. Does that make sense? So like
yeah.
they have the cover, they have the title, they have the blurb, and those are the 3 things that we say that's what sells the book. So if you only have the tagline, they might be like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting, and then they click on it and then they get to the blurb and they're like, oh no, never mind, that does it. Does that make sense? Do you think you would get more pure sales from click rates if it was the whole blurb?
Maybe, but I think I would lose a lot more people than I would get pure sales from having that much text in an email. If it's just true. One book and that's all that's in the email, I think it's fine. Like when we did recently the Destined for Love releases, I put the full blurb, but there was literally nothing else in the email. There wasn't an update. There was just, here's the next book, here's the cover, here's the blurb, here's the buy link. And I had really good click-throughs on that, and I think I got really good sales from those ones. But if I have 3 books in an email, and I also have an update about my, writing, and I also am telling them about a fun thing I did with my family that week, and I'm also telling them about like a cool giveaway or something, or I want them to fill out a poll or whatever, and then I also have 3 full blurbs, that is a lot of text for one email. And right. This is just my personal opinion, but if your tagline isn't catchy enough to make people want to buy it just from that, go rewrite your tagline. You got a problem.
I do mine. I have because you can do the picture and image. So I do the picture on one side and then the text on the other side. But then when I do the next book, I swap it. So the picture's on this side and then the text is on that side. So it gets a little differentiation between the two. So, but that's interesting. I'll have to try that.
I feel like we're lucky in romance because most people have fairly short blurbs, but sometimes I get one and I'm swapping with somebody and I swear their blurb's like 250 words long or 300 words long. And that's a lot of words in an email.
I personally really like it when I swap with authors who have a really short blurb and a tagline. I like the tagline because obvious reasons, but I like really short blurbs to kind of just like one small little paragraph.
Yeah.
Because I agree, the long ones are just intimidating on a newsletter because they can take up the whole screen, right? And then it's just, especially if they're looking at it on their phone. So when I go through and I read newsletters on my phone, it changes how everything's formatted. You can end up with just your whole phone screen being words, and you're like, So.
Yeah, and if you go look at your stats, like mine, by far the highest percentage of people are opening on their phones and reading on mobile devices. There's a very, very small percentage of people actually reading on a computer, for my email at least. So you want to make sure that you don't have those giant, long chunks of text, because it's way more intimidating on a phone than it is on a computer.
Interesting. I've been doing the whole blurb thing, but I think I might test just the tagline and see how my click rate changes.
I agree. In fact, you're making me want to make a form for other authors so that I have all that information from them, because I don't want to create my own taglines for other people. But I agree. I think that's nice to have something shorter.
Here's the other thing I'll say about that for newsletter swaps is for you, Victorine, I would totally be like, yes, I'm going to fill out the information because I really, really, really want my information in her email because I know it's awesome. But if you're a new author and nobody knows who you are and nobody knows if your newsletter is good and you tell me I have to fill out a form to swap with you, I'm not going to swap with you. If I can just say, give me an Amazon link and get what I need from that, I probably will. But if you make it too difficult to do swaps, you're not going to have as many people take you up on the offer.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is. Because I've thought about doing that, but I'm not nearly cool enough to entice people into filling out a big long thing.
I pretty much just tell people, can you just send me your cover image, please? That's one of the trickier things to get, I think.
I just right-click on the one on Amazon and save it.
Does it not give you the look inside little thing on it?
Not anymore.
Really? Because for so long it did, so I started switching over to going and digging it up on Goodreads.
Yeah, they quit doing that, which is really nice.
Yeah, I always zoom in on the Amazon page and then I screenshot just the cover.
No, I right click, man. That thing goes. I just have my personal assistant do it.
Switch over.
Send my newsletter. I'll come in and write my blurb, and then it gets sent out. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, I have my newsletter going out tomorrow. I gotta go write my blurb, or is this gonna be nothing? And then stuff. So finally, because actually what I had is because you can write a template, right? So she just brings it over, which is amazing. But at the end it said hugs Anne Marie, and I was like, so now if I forget, it's just getting sent to them that says hugs Anne Marie. And so I was like, okay, why don't I just delete that? So sometimes they'll just get a newsletter that just has books for them to buy instead of obviously Amy forgot her newsletter was going out. And now it's what is it? I had that happen too, where I was going to give away. So I try to give away some things too. So when you do an audiobook, you get 25 free audio books. And so I gave that away to my newsletter. And I was amazed how many people emailed me because I was like, have you not read this book yet? But people are like, I just love listening to audiobooks. Go ahead and send it to me. And so I was like, okay, it's going to go. And then I had something going on that morning and I forgot. And then I got here at 9, my newsletter goes at 9:30 every morning. And so I got it 9:30, no, 9:26, 9:27. And I tried to change it. And they're like, sorry, it's already in process of being sent. And I was like, no. So then I had to send a second email that day where I was like, I'm so sorry. I sent it. And I said I was going to give newsletter things and da-da-da-da-da. And I was just it was a big, big mess. I was so I sent 2 in one day because I felt bad. But I was hopefully the enticement of having these, free audiobook codes was enough to make them happy. But yeah, don't do that. But have a PA too because it's awesome. But
honestly, sometimes things like that work out in your favor because it shows them that you're human. And a lot of times when I make mistakes like that, that's when I get the biggest response and the most emails back.
Definitely.
But don't do it intentionally. Don't just try and do
And if you really want to get a response and make yourself feel really good, then you give away an Amazon gift card and tell them to tell you what they like about your book or which book is their favorite. And your head will get big. And then it will just blot out all of these mean Goodreads reviews and all these 1-star reviews you get where people are like, it was boring. you know, and then you hear they're like, I love, and you get some people who just like, you really can tell that you have like touched their lives. Your book has like influenced someone else. And that's like why we're all doing that. And those are the newsletter subscribers that you want, are those people who like really want to be there for you and your books.
Yes. I agree with that. So we have, is that all on that question? Do you guys have anything else you want to say about newsletter swaps? No.
I want to know what's a good open rate and click rate. That's what I want to know.
So I got some data on this because I figured people would want to know. So the short answer is nobody knows. Just, throwing that out there. MailChimp says they released data. They said for publishing that the industry average is 21.92% for an open rate and 4.55% for a click rate. So for the people who have marked their newsletter or whatever is publishing related somehow. Constant Contact, which I think is another newsletter service. I'm not really sure, but they said for publishing that 15.42% was a good open rate and that 9.18% was a good click rate. Smart Insights did a study and they said that 36.59% was a good open rate, 7.75% was a good click rate. So I averaged the three of those together, which were like industry related info. So it's 24.64% for open and 7.16% for click. I asked people on 20 books to 50K. I didn't get a ton of responses, but the ones I did get were really all over the board. I had people private message me some of their stats. There didn't seem to be any consistency, honestly, between them. Some of them were like 50%, some of them were like 15% or whatever. For my personal list, I averaged it out over like the 2 or so years I've been doing it. And I have on average like a 30% open rate and like a 5.65% click rate, which I have a theory that the smaller your list is, the higher your open rates and your click rates are. Most people who I see talking about really small lists, like 500 subscribers, 1,000 subscribers or whatever, have open rates like over 50%, a lot of them. People who have really large lists, if you have like 30 to 35%, that's usually a pretty decent rate, it seems like. I have about a little under 11,000 right now, and I pretty consistently get around 30% when I send an email out, which I'm happy with. Click rates, I feel like get a little bit skewed sometimes because it's not just counting when I have a new release. It's counting whenever I send them a poll or when, they click on my header and it takes them to my website or, all those kinds of things are all factoring in as well. I don't really worry too much about the click-through rate as long as my sales are good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Mine are pretty similar to that too. So those are good rates, I guess.
You're never going to get 100%. If that's what you're aiming for, you will be sad.
Man.
Yeah. Unless you only have like yourself on your list.
Yeah, or your mom and your aunt. So I have a small list, but it's pretty active. And I have about 45% open and then about 10% click rate. But I keep thinking, because I get like 400 people to open, but I only get like 100 to click. And so I'm trying to figure out, why do you think that is? Why do you think, or how can I engage people to click more? Or do you think there's just really no way to get them to click more? Does that make sense?
Yeah. First of all, they're notoriously inaccurate. MailChimp notoriously underreports, so usually it's higher than what it says it was. MailerLite supposedly overreports a lot, so it is less than it says it is. A lot of times if they view it on their phone, sometimes it won't count, or if they view it in certain apps, it doesn't count as an open or a click or things like that. So it's really hard to gauge if it's accurate from what they report to you. As far as how to get higher click rates and stuff, I think you just have to play around with it. You have to play and see, does tagline work better than putting the full blurb in? Does that get more people to click? I found that anytime I use a button, I get way higher click rates than if I hyperlink a word. So I don't hyperlink Like if I want whatever the big action I want them to do in my newsletter is, I make that a button. Because that's what's going to get me the most things. You also want to make sure on your emails you're not giving them too many things to click on. Like you don't want them to say, I mean, you can put like 3 books in your email, that's fine, but you don't want to be saying, buy my book, fill out this poll, follow me on Amazon, all in one email, because that's going to dilute your impact and you're not going to get as good of results as if you did each of those things individually, spread out over like a couple weeks or whatever. So you want to do that as well. Pay attention to what people are clicking on. I learned that my readers do not like historical at all. So if you have a historical book, I'm probably not going to put it in my newsletter because it's not going to do either of us very much good. I learned that YA is, fairly warm, but they don't like it nearly as much as just straight up contemporary. So I'm pretty selective about YA that I put in my newsletter. They don't care if it's not romance. So I'm not even going to try if it's anything else. I've learned that as well. I've learned that they are fairly receptive to polls. So I can do polls on Google Forms and they'll fill those out. But if I ask them to go vote for me somewhere, it's a little bit harder to get them to go do that, like for, the Swoonie Awards or things like that. It's harder to get them to do that versus just filling out something or whatever. So you just kind of have to pay attention and track what happens when you send out a newsletter. And I would say when you're tracking, wait a couple of days because usually it takes about 2 to 3 days for my open rate to stabilize and be where it's at. If I took the open rate after like 24 hours, I would be very sad because it's not what it will be in a couple days.
Okay.
I have to say when I go through the reports on mine and see which, if I put books in there, like 2 or 3 together, which ones they click on the most, I can almost guess ahead of time which ones people are going to click on the most. And it usually has a lot to do with their alignment with what I write and also with how good their cover taglines and titles are.
Yeah, if I can swap and the word is 250, 300 words, I can pretty much promise that nobody's going to click on it and buy it because it's too long. And usually that means their tagline's not snappy enough. And usually their cover isn't quite up to what my readers are going to be interested in. So all those things definitely play a factor. And there's people that if they ask me to swap, I'm going to automatically say yes and make room for them because I know my readers will love their book and the covers are great and the blurbs are great and it's going to make my readers happy.
Cool. So that's all the questions that I had for you. Do you have any live ones, Michelle? Have you seen any? No?
I do not. There is another Michelle Pennington that is posting things that is not me. And I suspect it's my 11-year-old daughter.
I wondered about that.
Which means she's awake. And if she's listening to this, go to sleep, Polly. But no questions. No questions tonight.
That's awesome.
I think Lindsay just did such an awesome job explaining everything that there's not a whole lot left to answer.
Yeah,
I do have one question though. So I am getting ready to start in a new genre and I do not have a newsletter built for that. In fact, I could try our like small newsletter thing because I do have 2 subscribers and one of them is my mom, so I know I could get a 50% open rate on that one. Probably 50% click-through rate. But how do you suggest someone just start from scratch with the newsletter before they put a book out? Is there any way, or do you pretty much have to have, because I know the one that I currently have, I didn't get going until I already had books out. And so I'm a total noob with trying to start a newsletter without having my book out yet. But I also want to start trying to find my readers. So any suggestions?
So I actually did this recently. I have a pen name that's like super, super top secret because I want to be able to experiment and do things with it without it being influenced by my Lindsee Armstrong pen name. And so I was like, okay, I know I need a newsletter for this. How am I going to do it? So I planned out way far in advance before I started publishing, and I wrote a novella as a reader magnet very first thing. And then I put it up on, like Insta-Freebie and BookFunnel and places like that and started joining promos a few months before I published the first, book in the series or whatever, so that I could be collecting those subscribers. And then I started swapping with people so that I would have content to give to my subscribers as I was building that pen name, because I didn't have any books for them to buy yet. I just had the magnet or whatever. And I did just like I do on my normal list. I created a drip campaign. I did all those good practices that I wish I had done from the very start on my Lindsay Armstrong name. And it's been going good so far. It's been great because I've avoided a lot of the mistakes that I made the first time around. So it's been a lot easier, I think. But I think that would be my number one piece of advice is write something you can give away for free from the very beginning and be really smart about what you write. Because like with my Lindsay Armstrong one, I have my adult contemporary romance series, and then I have a prequel novella I wrote about how one of the main characters met in high school. And it's been very awkward to use that as a reader magnet because it's technically young adult because they're in high school. It's different from all the other books in the series because the kids are 16 instead of like in their mid to late 20s, early 30s. And it's just been hard because a lot of people who like my adult ones, they don't really like young adults, so it's really hard to get them to read the young adult one until they've read the other books in the series and they love it. And then people who read the young adult one don't necessarily like adults, so it's hard to get them to read the adult books. So I would say make sure that the magnet is a really good representation of the kind of books you're going to write, and make sure that it's intelligently and logically tied into your first series that you're going to release so that people are going to read that one and want to immediately go click and buy the books that you have in that series. Because the way I did it was like such a mess and so not smart, and I wish I could go back and redo that whole series because I made such a mess of so many things with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I'll just see if I can write a novella on top of finishing my novel.
And they don't have to be long. All the magnets I've used have been like 15,000 words, which is, it's not like you have to do some 50,000 word book and give it to people for free. It just needs to be a complete story without a cliffhanger or people get mad.
Okay.
And I do want to say, though, that the best way to get newsletter subscribers, though, on a consistent basis is writing books and having it in the back of your book. Like, yeah. Book Funnel's great, or not Book Funnel. My Book Cave and all those ones are great. But when you have books that people are buying and they're getting to the end of your book and they're wanting to join your newsletter, those are the best, I think, kind of people that you can get. Because I write contemporary adult, but my newsletter magnet is not. It's like teenagers. But it's like a rendition of The Swan Princess, because that was like my favorite one growing up, like a 10,000 word. But it amazes me how many people I get subscribing to my newsletter every day. Like it grows every single day, like maybe by 4 or 5. But because I'm releasing constantly and I'm doing free days on my books once a month, one of them, I'm always getting newsletter subscribers in the back. So make sure you update that information and you have that in the back. And I put it in the front and the back of my book. In both, because people will be like, oh, look, I can do this. Oh, maybe I'll read the book and decide. And then they get to the end and they're like, oh yeah, I want to read it. Where do you put your newsletter subscriber? Because I always try to figure out, okay, do I want to put the link to the next book, or do I want to put, also buy, or do I want to put my newsletter? How do you decide what to put in what order in the back of your book?
So I put when they finish the book. I'm just recently changing this. I haven't been doing it this way until just like I'm updating all my books right now. But when they finish, I don't have a page break. I have a link to the next book without a page break. And then there's the page break, and then it's the newsletter join right after that. And then after that, I have, my other books or whatever, and I tell them about one book from each of 3 series and then where they can find those series. And I give like a short tagline, and then I have the other back matter.
Do you have like the actual picture of the books and then the tagline, or do you just have, these are other books by Lindsay Armstrong, and then it's just the name of, like mine is just the name and it's hyperlinked that they can click on it?
Yeah, I just have, I used to have images. I took all the images out. It costs a lot. 1, even when they're super compressed, it costs money to have images in your book. But 2, I don't think it really increased conversions a ton, honestly. And, I update my covers sometimes. I don't want to have to go update the ebooks every time I change a cover or something like that. So I took the covers out and I just have text and a link. I totally stole it from Elena Johnson, so she deserves all the credit. I've kind of patterned my also buys after her. And
She does what again?
She gives like a tagline about the first book in like each of her series, and then tells them where they can buy that book, as opposed to linking to every single book she has. Because I mean, once you get a giant backlist, that's like an overwhelming number of links, right? You don't want to have so many links that your readers don't know where to click. So instead, I put like a 1-sentence tagline about like mismatch, and then a link of where they can get it. And then I put a 1-sentence tagline about Kiss Me in the Moonlight and where they can get that in that series. And then I put a 1-sentence tagline about Tomorrow's Lullaby and where they can get that series. And then I've given them 3 series, and I put like, do you want another contemporary, another romantic comedy? Try this series. Do you want more of a romantic suspense? Try this series. Do you want something that's a little bit more inspirational? Try this series. So based on kind of how they're feeling, maybe they'll pick one of those series and say, yeah, I want to read more comedies like this one. Let's go get the next book in the series. Or no, I'm feeling like I want more action and adventure. Let me try this one, or whatever. So I'm giving them a couple different options, but hopefully not overwhelming them.
That's a good idea. Once I get a big backlist, I don't have a big backlist yet. All my books still show up on one page, so I'm just gonna keep it. And I was gonna say, if you're not part of the Writing Gals, what we also found was that if you add a link to all your books at the bottom of your newsletter, you'll actually get people. I get people clicking on those books even now. You would think that they've all read it. No, I find clicks for every single one of them. So make sure that you go down, that you add that to the bottom, because it's only a great way to get another way to get clicks.
I estimate I probably sell 50 books a month just by putting that in the bottom of my newsletter. So you can't go wrong.
Awesome.
All right, we did get one question on the YouTube channel. Craig says, my wife is curious how necessary a newsletter is to one's success, and when is it best to start one, before or after publishing book 1?
I think it's very necessary. I know there's a lot of authors who argue. There's a lot of successful authors out there who do not have newsletters. There definitely are. But I think if you're brand new and you have no platform and no fan base, it's your best bet at achieving success, if that makes sense. Like, yes, other people have done it without it, but do you really want to take the chance that you're 1 in a million, right? Or do you want to do what most people are doing who's successful? So I think it's important. I think you should start as soon as you're ready to start publishing stuff. I would get that magnet ready, and in about 2 to 3 months before you're planning on releasing your first book, put that magnet up and start collecting subscribers. And then once you have them, it's important, I think, that you email them consistently. Whatever's consistent for you, you can pick. If it's once a month, if it's once a week, if it's twice a week, if it's once a day, maybe not that much, but whatever works for you. And then be emailing them so that when your book does come out, they're not like, who is this person that is emailing me? I've never heard of Lindsay. Why is she suddenly telling me about a book? You want to be emailing them so that when they get that email, they're like, oh, Lindsay, her book is finally here. I love that person. I want to go buy it and see if she's any good at this writing thing or whatever,
And thanks so much, Craig, for making me look like a slacker. I've been watching your comments all night, and you finally ask a question when I'm not watching.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Craig.
I thought for sure you were going to say something, but you didn't unmic, and I thought, oh, she missed the question.
Okay, he's asking another one. Hold on. Can a single series become too long? Oh, this isn't a newsletter question, but we'll ask it. Can a single series become too long, like book 40 in somebody's series? Do you feel like it makes readers feel like they'll never catch up? Do you guys know of any book series that go on and on and on? I don't think that's as common in romance as it is in like sci-fi and fantasy and mystery.
Yeah, if they're standalone novels, I don't think it's that big of a deal at all. I think that if you have readers that are still enjoying your books and buying them, keep it going until it, dies. That's what I think anyway. But yeah, if it's like a series where you have to read every single book, I think you should definitely stop at some point.
Yeah.
Could you imagine us taking 40 books to tell a love story? You would lose so many readers. They would be so upset with you. They'd be like, I'm done. I mean, Judy can't handle it if it goes 50% of the book and they haven't kissed yet. Seriously. Judy's like, why haven't they kissed? I'm 50% into the book and they are not kissing yet.
Except in most of mine, it's like 60%. So
You just got to write the fake marriage series and they can kiss in the second chapter and you're good to go.
I don't like kisses too soon though. I'm like, oh nope, I didn't care about that one. It just depends. It really depends.
That one doesn't count.
I know, like
Support.
that one didn't have the build up that I needed, so that was dumb. I am a super fickle person.
That's okay. Most of our
This is
reviewers
why
are too.
this is why we write our own books.
Yeah.
So we make it the way we want to read it. And then we just hope everybody else wants to read it too.
Yeah. But if it is like, 100,000 word book, you gotta have a kiss at least by 50%.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Especially if you're gonna have Judy read it and give a good review.
Yeah. I'll be like, oh, they took forever. Dumb.
It's like those movies you're watching, you're like, why haven't they kissed yet? I'm sorry, Michelle. I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
I'm currently reading a YA series, and it's got a romantic thread through it, but it's not a romance. I'm like, okay, I can be patient. Okay, it's the third book. Can they please kiss now?
Seriously? You cannot make it take that long.
Yeah, but I'm still enjoying the series. I mean, it's just not a romance. It just has a romantic thread. But as a romance reader, I'm like, book 3, they gotta kiss now, surely, right?
Yeah.
And then you feel weird for really wanting these 16-year-old kids to be kissing. You're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, I didn't even kiss at that age, so. But I make my characters. Woo.
We make our characters do everything. Oh, that's funny.
Well, it's been a great show. I think we're all prepared to go out and make our newsletters better, right?
Yeah, I definitely have some great ideas. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for teaching us all your wonderful ways.
Yeah.
A lot of things I hadn't even thought about before, so I really appreciate that. And I'm sure all of our viewers do as well. So next week, we are going to be talking about story structure and how to keep from having a saggy middle. So make sure to tune in then. And yeah, until next week, we are the Writing Gals, staying up late. Thanks for staying up with us.